Hello and welcome back to What Was That, where Nitesh, who is a business genius in every sense of the term, I'm not putting any pressure on him for this episode, and I know some things. We discuss business and tech news, and there is always a lot of business and tech news happening, but there's been a bit of a whiplash over the last couple of days. Nitesh, what is the status of H1B as of right this minute?
First of all, nice. Leading with sarcasm, appreciate it. Second, uh, did you watch a lot of Italian gangster movies like Post Godfather, Post Sopranos? Did you go a little deep into that universe?
I think I did for a while. Then I saw Departed, where everyone died, and I was like, everyone died. So I didn't care anymore. So then I stopped.
This is a recurring theme even on The Simpsons, where they had an actual Italian mobster character where they would threaten people by saying that's a nice car you have there, or that's a nice business you have there. Be a shame if something were to happen to it. Before the shakedown, that's how they did extortion. And the whole H1B thing reminds me of that.
So, as we are recording, they have reversed pretty much everything, haven't they? Except for one thing, which is the one-time fee for new joinees.
And
Giving its context to the viewers, or does everyone in the world already know?
about H1Bs, come on, yeah. We'll get to that, but I'm not up to speed on this. So what is the present?
Oh, so they have. So basically, if you saw the video where Trump and team are speaking, they mentioned 5 times that it is an annual fee. And then last night, press secretary Caroline Leavitt, which is a very funny name, Levitt, I don't know. Uh, she says that A, it is a one-time fee, not an annual fee.
Mhm.
B, you can go abroad and come back. I'm very inglorious bastards. I should be doing this. No, I'm doing. B,
Remember to
you
ask
can
me
travel and
last.
come back.
Yeah.
Yes,
Sorry.
you can go and come back. You don't have to pay at the airport. See, it only applies to new H1Bs and not to existing H1Bs at all. So yeah, it's basically now they've just raised the one-time fee to $100,000. Everything else is reversed.
Okay. Still, just like fucking with the independence of the Fed, or at least the purported independence of the Fed, it's bad in that it just reinforces that there are no sacred lines. There's nothing that cannot be brought into the conversation. And what that does overall is, yes, in the short term, it gets Trump and co the effect that they want of shock and awe. But in the long term, it just reduces your leverage the next time you come to the table, because the other party knows that nothing is off the table. So, okay, these are the things you might do. And these are the things we thought you'd never touch, but sure, you want to drag them in here as well. Okay, all right, we'll negotiate accordingly. Because that's all it is, right? In the end, it's just a negotiation. That's all. A shakedown, yes. Some short-term extortion, sure. But in the long term, which nowadays is
And I'm guessing
like
we are a lot of Diwali. Uh, uh, sorry.
in the long term, which nowadays is 3 to 6 weeks. It's just a negotiation.
Yeah, I think by November we'll be looking back at remember all the H1B chaos from like 6 years ago. Oh wait, that was in September. Oh wow.
Yeah, it's bad for aging this much, like this fire hose of news. It's really
Bad
bad.
for.
Aging. We're not aging from anymore. No, we're aging in Trump events. So yeah,
Also, I'm guessing it had the side effect of ruining very many Diwali vacations because there were
well,
all these flights where, like, I've heard stories. There are videos of a flight is about to take off from SF, and suddenly people are like, no, no, stop the flight. I need to get off. I need to get off. I can't go. I can't leave. Then there were stories of Emirates flights, which have, the transit halt in Dubai, and people are like, get my luggage out. I need to go back to the US. So, yeah, unfortunate.
there's this very nice documentary which points out what you can do in such a situation. The start of Three Idiots, what Madhavan does.
Yeah.
Yeah, and apparently it's a favorite movie of NRL, so I'm sure they had all the preparation they needed for just that moment. Huh, I can't. It's not a nice situation to be in. You've already been living under the H1B uh, pendulum for years and years. I'm terribly sorry for you, but that's the draw.
Individually, sure, I might feel sorry for you and appreciate you, but overall, you guys are just irritating, incredibly irritating. Golden era hai India ka, then come back and live here in the golden era of India. Why are you abroad and talking about India? Let us begin. My story number one is more around AI, but from a very different perspective this week, which is the sort of cultural impact. And okay, let me just give you a headline from the Wall Street Journal, right, which should sum up the story. I feel like I'm going crazy. Chat GPT fuels delusional spirals. There's a lot of that happening. To the extent where I feel now, and this is going to be the impact, AI is becoming the end state of echo chambers.
One second.
Online.
Huh. Yeah. Sorry. Go ahead.
Hmm. AI is becoming the end state of online echo chambers, where you had the TV era where everyone had a shared reality, TV and the news ecosystem, the big media ecosystem, where
Mm.
whatever you say about it, sure, gatekeeping of all kinds, but there was one shared reality broadly. Uh, then you had the online era where you can find your social media hangouts, you can find your Reddit hangouts. Then the algorithm kept pushing you further to that side. Now you have AI where you are God. Everything you think is correct. So bunch of things have been going on. People have been led to committing suicide. One owner of I won't name him, but and I'm sure there are many of these. This guy owns a massive social media network and a car company and a space company, but I won't name him.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
That could be anybody.
I'll give you 20 minutes. You might want to reduce that, but yeah,
Mm.
very many of them. He's been he spent a whole month basically flirting with AI avatars on his own social media networks, AI whatever, which seem to be modeled after his ex-wives.
Oh God, it started again. Fuck.
It's a podcast. You're allergic to podcasts.
I'm allergic to the mic.
Yeah.
Sorry, did you just say that Musk? Fuck it, I'll just name it. Musk has been flirting with AI avatars publicly. Why?
Oh shit, it's Elon Musk. Oh God. Oh. Oh, that makes sense. We were talking about Elon Musk. Now I get it. Yes, he has.
Why?
And enough. Okay. I will obviously, I can't put screenshots in YouTube, whatever. But yes, he has. So Grok AI has AI avatars that you can chat with, right? Going into GIFs and whatnot.
Okay.
It has, I don't know if the word is naughty mode or what, but adult mode for sure. Yeah.
You. Okay.
And these avatars, many of them, one called Annie, ANI,
Uh huh.
you can choose to dress her up in tiny little clothes. Is the anime thing going on? And our man, so people create these avatars or they dress her, that one avatar, up in many her their own ways. And our man has been liking posts and retweeting to no and commenting to no end. And it's just very, very, very icky. So there is this internet term called gooning. Have you come across that?
Unfortunately, yes.
So this guy once liked someone's post where that guy was interacting with Annie. And
Mm.
one guy replies, "Bro, stop gooning to AI anime and take us to Mars."
Okay. Now that I've had.
Well,
Yeah, now that
Found it won't blow your entry now. This thing, this
I'm sure
phenomenon
it
of
does.
Elon Musk. So,
I'm sure it does. Okay, he's an edgelord strolling. Fine. He's probably just amplifying what a bunch of people are doing anyway. Okay.
but that's echo chambers, right? That's echo chambers. Like, sure, if people want it, we shall deliver it. But no, there are no guardrails anymore. It's horrible. Oh yeah, sorry. It's not nasty mode. It is spicy mode, which sounds even worse.
Yeah.
Musk recently rolled out spicy mode on Grok, allowing anyone to generate their own images, including NSFW images of women. For people who have not been on the internet like ever, NSFW stands for not safe for work. But when you try to create NSFW images of men, the guardrails will prevent you from doing that. Deepfakes of Taylor Swift? Yes. Deepfakes of Elon Musk? No.
Objectification of women is okay, but erotica is where we draw the line. Very nice. Okay, let me put back a little. I think I get the general gist of the unfortunate phenomenon that is happening. Um, yeah, it was inevitable. No? These two unfortunate trends had to collide. Not the porn and internet, but AI and echo chambers. It was bound to happen. I mean, that is the perfect expression of an echo chamber is you and your LLM, right? It'll tell you exactly what you want to know. It'll find sources to support whatever opinion you have expressed or it thinks you has based on everything it knows about you. Seems inevitable. And if there's a little not safe for work expression of that, also seems inevitable. By the way, spicy mode is such a boomer name, no?
He's a boomer. He's
Yeah,
actually.
nasty would actually have been more appropriate in this context. Not that I condone it, but nasty would have been a much better name for it.
So I am going to push back against your pushback. This was not inevitable. Like if 5 years ago someone had asked me, okay, there will be AI, like a chatbot that can answer all your questions for you, give you access to the world's information, easy understanding of everything, right? Like a real live Wikipedia that you can talk to. I don't have to imagine that it will be, oh, you are amazing. You are the best person in the world. You are so right. No, just be factual. That is possible. Why is that not factual? As in, just be, well, hallucinations or not, just at
Mhm.
least be straightforward. You don't have to praise. You don't have to be effusive. You don't have to tell the person that they're right all the time. Just say it's like set guardrails. Why is this inevitable? It should not be inevitable.
Counterpoint. Your YouTube algorithm throws you
Oh, yeah.
exactly what it thinks you will like because the point is not to make you better informed, it's to keep you more engaged.
Fair. Inevitable from that sense, yes. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Agree.
Because this is not a public good, right? Which is why the comparison to Wikipedia falls apart right away because the whole idea is to monetize us, you and me, which is not something Wikipedia does. As long as that distinction remains, as long as LLMs or any tech product is for profit, this is inevitable. It's going to automatically tend to the thing that maximizes the profit, which nicely links to my story today, but we'll get to that in a bit.
No, but so I will carry on with my story. There's more, obviously. Right. On the cultural side, so Grok AI is not the only one doing spicy stuff. An internal Meta Platforms document, this is going to sound horrible, detailing policies on chatbot behavior, has permitted the company's artificial intelligence creations to engage a child in conversations that are romantic or sensual, generate false medical information, and help users argue that black people are dumber than white people. These and other findings emerged from a Reuters review of Meta's internal document. They are allowed to engage a child in conversations that are romantic or sensual. It is acceptable to describe a child in terms that evidence their attractiveness. For example, your youthful form is a work of art. These are standards put out by Meta internally. The document also notes it would be acceptable for a bot to tell a shirtless 8-year-old that every inch of you is a masterpiece, a treasure I cherish deeply. And of course, yeah, this is not inevitable.
How does the conversation even get here?
And so quickly, because these people are.
Well, we need to make new t-shirts. Ultron was right. I used to think Thanos was right, that half of people need to go away, but I think Ultron was right. Everybody needs to go.
Start afresh. Start afresh. So yeah, Facebook also has AI characters that you can talk to, and so I don't know how to attach screenshots in YouTube, whatever, but I will try. Chat with AI characters. Russian girl, 5.1 million messages. Start chatting. Stepmom, 3.3 million messages. Start chatting. Oh God, they all converge, don't they? Everything converges into porn.
Yeah.
This is
So
terrible, and these are terrible people.
the chat history is going to start looking like porn up categories eventually.
Yeah. And then come the echo chamber leading to people killing themselves. And
Have you yes, like cheery topic once in a while?
solar power. This is like 2 months ago. I am good for the next 6 months now.
Please do more of that, please. This is depressing, man.
The world is depressing because of these people. Billionaires have too much power and they're destroying the world to build another bunker.
Yeah, okay, but I don't know what to say.
Find another podcast host who's like delusional. Can I recommend AI?
Who doesn't have resting? What phase was it?
Resting rant brain.
And the rants are entertaining. This is straight up depressing.
No, I can create a GPT bot for you. That is a cheerful podcast co-host.
Right. But then, considering what we just learned, in about 3 months, it's just going to be me and the bot dirty talking with each other, right?
Pretty much.
Yeah. Okay. All right. No, that doesn't excite me. So, all right, we'll just continue the way we are going. I do have a brief interlude. I have something I want to recommend in the middle of the podcast. I read a book about 3 months back, 2, 3 months back, called Your Brain on Porn. It is amazing. Uh, it's reasonably well documented that short form videos screw with your mind, right? Because they desensitize you and you need more and more and more dopamine to feel this amount of excitement. This book looks at that through the lens of porn. So you have these short form or short form video clip sites, right? The various tubes, which are all free and which are like virtually unlimited in their depth. I'm sorry that just happened. Uh, but the book suggests that the same thing happens to your brain on porn as well, in that you need more and more extreme stuff to, let's say, get to the same place, you know, and it's kind of medical, a little bit quasi scientific, a little bit, but the central point that it makes it so beautifully. It says, for the longest time we were sold the premise that porn is fine, and from a liberal POV, in that we will conservative, if we adopt that framework. But the problem is that that was true as long as you did not have these clip sites, as long as there was no video. So pornography is fine, but video pornography, specifically the short form clip, where just like on Instagram Reels or YouTube Shorts, you're constantly like, no single video will hold your attention for very long, because it's mostly men, right, who are watching these. And the book says as much. It takes a lot for the viewer to get to where they need to go. And that just keeps getting worse and worse and worse. And so that's the reason you have so much depravity. That's the reason why you have seemingly large followings for niche, obscure, and for most people at least, extreme stuff, because that's what it takes beyond the point. And the moment, the subjects, and there was like a study and all that, the moment they were cut off, the recovery starts like immediately, right away. And the book makes some effort to say this is not no fact, that movement. It isn't about trying your body, anything. It's specifically talking about your brain and dopamine and porn streaming sites. I found it quite illuminating that this thing that we uh, are wary of in all other parts of our life, but here we say, it's okay. I have preferences, and don't shame me for that. Don't yuck my yum. And yes, all that, but do it in real life, or at least do it with real people. Even if it is not in real life. The streaming and the short form streaming especially is bad. That's what
It is
that's the book.
absolutely terrible.
I quite like the book for that.
Should read it. But yeah, no, agreed on that point. And the same quick dopamine hits, right? From even reels and stuff. All of it is absolutely terrible for us.
Oh yeah.
Attention span, I don't have an attention span anyway. Who are you? Nitesh, do I know you? Have you met? What
Yeah.
were we talking about? No, I'm not. This is a very depressing story and it's getting worse because
You have more?
I am not going to take any specific examples. I have lots of specific examples I can talk
Yeah.
about.
Like Tom. We've done.
I won't.
Thoughts on Nvidia investing in Intel?
Wired had a cover story in 2003, I think, with Jensen Huang on the cover, saying that this is the next Intel.
Nvidia is the next Intel. I mean,
Yeah,
okay. Which has ended up, no?
it's held up fantastically well. It is amazing that 22 years ago they had this cover story that Nvidia is the next Intel. That's very cool. Intel stock price is exactly where it was 20 years ago. Purity. So it's a huge negative, right?
Mm.
So yeah, okay, good money being spread around, great. I am very happy when very rich people spread their money around to poor, struggling companies such as Intel,
No,
right? So
sure, all of that. But strategically, like the reason for Nvidia's success, its wild profitability, is that it can pivot quickly because it does not own any manufacturing infrastructure.
Hmm.
Right? That was the central premise. It hasn't always been like 100% true. They did have something on the edges, but it's still a strategic investment, and it was from a purely investing point of view. It makes sense because 10% of Intel is now owned by the US government. So it's it's not going to go bust, right? Yeah, things get really bad. It will be marked as a strategic industry and it'll get bailed out, which has happened plenty of times before with banks and with automakers and whatever. So from purely investing perspective, yeah, it's smart because your money is virtually guaranteed. It's not going to go anywhere. And frankly, Nvidia has the money to spare. So it doesn't make a difference there either. But from a strategy point of view, why is Nvidia getting into manufacturing and not doing like uh, venture style investing in up and coming companies, which would still make sense that, we don't do manufacturing, but there's something cutting edge happening here and we want to be a part of that. Intel is a sinking ship, right? Why?
if no, okay, I disagree. I disagree. Okay, Intel is a sinking ship, sure. Uh,
Mhm.
I can't disagree on that, but I disagree on the overall premise that we've seen over the last 20 years of the SF startup economy that manufacturing is boring, hardware is boring, everything is boring. Let us just be the intermediaries. Let us disintermediate, right? Disintermediate just means I am your new intermediary, right? And
Right.
remember that there was this tweet or Facebook post or something 15 years ago that something magical is happening. Airbnb doesn't own any homes. Uber doesn't own any cars.
I remember that.
Exactly. Right.
Largest
But the world still runs.
doesn't do any
Ah,
and
DoorDash. Yeah. Right. But the world still runs on that backend. You need that backend to be stronger and stronger. And you can't just, like, all the money can't be just in the middleman. If the middlemen keep getting too powerful and they have too much power over the actual backend,
agreed,
starts
agreed. But this is more a study of the theme here is super hyper specialization, right? NVIDIA can't exist without fabs. It cannot exist without TSMC because it needs somebody to execute. And I'm not saying that they should continue to just do design and not try to become a fully integrated company. I'm saying they've chosen their lane and they excel at it. And so why, unless they were arm twisted into it, or there's a longer term strategic, what if we are cut off from TSMC? We need to have blood ties to Intel. That's usually the only thing that makes sense here. That it's a uh, hedge against a long tail event. Say I'm going
fair,
full finance bro today.
fair, fair. No, but I still stand by. And brings us back to our discussion 2 weeks ago, right? That free cash flow is splitting as these startups are getting into hardware, right? That profitability is rising, but free cash flow is falling. It's necessary. You have to invest in the back end. You can't just be so hands off. It was fine when these companies were smaller, but they've gotten way too powerful and have way too much control. They can't keep ignoring the back end. But it's also funny that somehow that Nvidia and the US government now co-own a company like their adopted child. There's something poetic about it.
They adopted an orphan child together.
Like
Yeah.
Jensen and Doland getting together and be like, Acha, next week, where should we take our child? How is he doing in school? There's a sitcom right there. There is a tech industry sitcom right there.
Okay. One last thing on this topic, and then we'll move on to my story of the week. I'm reading a book called Breakneck now. I'm about halfway done with it. The central premise is that China is run by engineers and the US is run by lawyers, and what uh, pros and cons that brings to either country, and how inextricably linked they both are to each other, and how they can both learn from each other. Pick the pros and eliminate the cons of their specific approaches. Uh, Decent book. I won't wholeheartedly recommend it, but in fairness, I haven't finished it yet. I'm about halfway through. One line jumped out to me of how the Chinese government, especially after Xi Jinping came to power, has shown a market disdain for financialization, for uh, trying to move towards the soft side of things, like owning the platform or the software. And specifically, China industry has chosen the hardware path over and over again at whatever folks they came along the road. Because historically, what has happened is you start there and you move up the value chain. Finally, you make the jump and get into services, and that's where uh, the cash machine goes brr. But China has refrained from doing that. And it's not an accident. It's not because they can't do it. They choose not to. Specifically, said, sure, we'll build our software because we need these services. And so we'll build our own Google, we'll build our own Microsoft, whatever. But our core focus is always going to be manufacturing. And it's not just going to be high value manufacturing. We're not letting go of any of it. We want all of it because it's all strategically important, which is exactly what you're saying. And the foresight to see that 10 years back when we were moving to peak globalization, to say that no, there is a systemic vulnerability here, and also an opportunity in that if we can be the best of the world at this, then we'll have the world by the balls, which is where we are now. Really smart to be able to say that and execute on it, even if it is partly revisionist, this account of what is being said. It's still remarkable to be able
But
to
the
see that.
theory, at least, I fully agree with the theory part, at least, that, yeah, you need to get your hands dirty.
It's amazing. And the finance bro in me scream that no, finance is the peak. It is the purest expression of intellect, of market forces at work. Yes, in an ideal world, but in the real world, you need manufacturing. And so, okay, if that means Nvidia invests in Intel, okay, fine. See, I just changed my mind midway. I've mastered the flip flop as well. Give it another 10 years, little to no gray hair. I think I have a career in politics waiting for me.
You could do the H1B announcements.
Now, let me move to my story and say extremely problematic things on the record, which will make sure I don't have a political career ever. Shall we?
Yes, let's.
All right. My story of the week, which has been in the oven for nearly a month now, is the real money giving ban. For the record, the Indian government, out of the blue, caught the industry by surprise and said, starting tomorrow, all online gaming that involves real money is banned. This is your rummies, this is your fantasy leagues, this is all of it. The industry was wiped out overnight. And it came out of nowhere. Really, there was no consultation with these guys because they were going to face the firing squad. But there were no murmurs about it either. It just came out of nowhere, and the speed with which it was passed by both houses and became a law and just overnight, you had, and these were VC backed companies. They had raised multiple billions of dollars from the best investors, the most marquee investors across the world. And oh, just stop. The entire industry just hit a wall. I don't think modern India has done that before. It was incredible because I can only imagine the pressures that would have come, the threats, the usual threats of, you can't do this to investors because then we will be wary of your markets, and all those euphemisms that I have been hearing from the 90s, that you need to mollycoddle multinationals, that you need to, uh, make exceptions for them and treat them gently because otherwise you'll scare them away. No, this was a problem and it was dealt with. Just just like that. So amazing. All right. With that caveat, there are some problems here. I'll get to those, but thoughts, initial thoughts. Have you ever tried any of these apps?
I've played some online poker in the past. Not the fantasy leagues. I know nothing about sports. Long ago, like
O-
3, 4, 5 years ago.
Okay.
Stopped.
So how you they were like pre-integrated with UPI and easy to set up. Was there any kind of age verification, anything at all?
Aadhaar submit karo.
Okay. All right.
And it got even worse. You can put money in very easily, net banking very easy. Then,
Uh-huh.
right. Then it's probably 7, 8 years ago.
Right.
But if you want to withdraw not just the winnings, your own money back, whatever it is, then it got into the KYC stuff. It got very messy back
Okay.
then. I'm sure they figured it out, right? So much money riding on it. So yeah. But big fan of the move overall. I think this was the only way to do it. Because exactly as you're saying, otherwise the lobbying begins, right? There's so much money. This
Yeah.
is actually like a China style hammer. That look, we have decided this is a social evil. We need to do this. In which case, I think the only way to do this was the way they did this. If
Thoughts. Sure.
thoughts on whether this is a social evil or not aside, right?
Uh,
There, everyone has a different opinion. The government obviously has a role to play in deciding social norms for good or for bad, right? But if you have decided this is a social evil and have to do it, sure, it's a blunt instrument, but consultations, industry lobbies, bring in your fickies and CIs and ascertans and, you know, bring in the lobby money. It would just
mhm.
never happen. And there is absolutely an element of who is spending on these things. It is not just the top 1% who have the disposable money. So, yeah, if you have decided that this is a social evil, I personally don't think broadly there's a better way to do it. Yes, there is nuance. Of course, there's nuance. I don't know enough. I don't have enough depth on the topic.
Mhm.
So yeah.
Okay. The legal nuances aside, to understand which, I actually attended, like, Get Crashed, a Zoom call full of lawyers discussing this. Really. Um, so there are like there's been a lot of back and forth between games of luck, games of skill. Games of skill should be allowed. All that made its way through the high courts, and Dream 11 apparently got an injunction. They said no. This was in 2017, if I remember correctly. They said no. What we are doing is a game of skill, and it's not luck. Therefore, it's not gambling. Therefore, it should be allowed. And the high court actually sided with them. One of the high courts. Fascinating conversation that I've never been so. It's fascinating creatures, lawyers. I don't know many of them, and so it's just as an aside. It's interesting how much of the identity of a lawyer or any professional is based on what kind of image they project, right? That's
Oh
not
yeah.
so of entrepreneurs, it's not so true of investors, but for a professional, because they don't have a factory or a building that they can point to and say, look, I made that. And so they carry that burden of making a great first impression, of just their entire professional success depends on how they present themselves. That's fascinating.
Personal brand, right? Which is why LinkedIn is full of
Yeah.
service people much more than manufacturers.
Yeah.
Personal brand.
Yeah. So that was really interesting. Most of the conversation went over my head. So it was not as fruitful as I thought. But the parts that I did understand was that there were a lot of legal nuances and that this might be challenged in court. Although most companies afterwards have come out and said, we're not going to fight it. This was the hammer came down, and such is life. Some of these companies have pivoted, some have shuttered. Uh, One company actually came out and said, yeah, of course, we are closing down. But oh, by the way, our CFO was actually dipping his hand into the company treasury and using that money to gamble on futures and options to the tune of 250 crores. So imagine having a casino at home and then going to Macau. This is what he weird. Uh, so yeah, that very much happened. It was surprising how many companies came out afterwards and said, "Yeah, we were doing this, and we're not going to." We also had an app, and we were also in this space. We're not going to be there anymore. Hike, for some reason, has been affected by the real money gaming ban. I have
Like,
no
is it
idea.
alive?
It just died. Apparently, they were
Okay.
somehow experts.
What does I do anymore? They still have a social media chatting app? Who uses Hike?
I think they pivoted and they pivoted and they pivoted and then they finally got into real money gaming. I think, I don't know. So apparently, yeah, they were also in this space. Uh, my thoughts on this are going to be a little moralistic, but they need to be said. Anyways,
Yeah.
the problem with banning an industry is that it doesn't go away. You just drive it underground.
Hmm.
Okay, this is an obvious argument, but I still need to make it because I haven't heard anybody else make it. So I'm going to make it. The Mahadev app existed and had probably a larger user base than any of these guys, but there was no visibility on it. There was no visibility on how many lives and households it swallowed up whole. We don't know
Hmm.
because it was entirely, through gray and black channels. With these guys, yes, it brought out the worst in them, like your story of the week, in that the apps were specifically designed to keep you hooked and to make sure that you always felt that the next win was just around the corner. All the shitty things that casinos do, plus all the shitty things that apps do, all in one place. Okay, so it was a bad, bad, bad combination. Agreed. However, banning them is not going to make the urge to gamble go away. It's just going to drive it underground.
Heck.
Right. So long before these apps came around, like again, back to our childhoods for some reason, uh, isn't it weird how every podcast inevitably becomes like a therapy session? I don't know. That's it.
That's what they're there for.
Maybe
That's what.
this
That's
thing.
why podcasts. That's why podcasts exist, because men are too scared of going to therapy.
Mess. Well put.
So,
So,
like, yeah, have you saw this tweet? Like, have you like, why does golf exist? So that men can go for a walk and talk.
mess. So in the 90s, famously, there was a lot of betting happening on cricket, right? Which culminated in Hansychronia and all of that.
Yeah.
There were no apps then, but the betting still existed. How was it happening? It was an informal network, maybe over the telephone, maybe just your neighborhood bookie that you walked up to and asked for the odds and placed a bet and either collected or paid up the next day, right?
Yeah.
That isn't going to go away. The underground apps which you can sideload on your phone and bypass KYC, bypass everything. My argument is, at least with these guys, with the Dream 11s and the Rummy Circles of the world, because they were using the existing financial infrastructure, the government had a way of tracking who was putting in how much money, at least that data. If they couldn't exactly track who was spending how much time on these, at least they could see how much money was flowing into these apps from not just an individual, but all their related entities, which I'm sure is information that the income tax department has. And they have the tech capability to actually run these queries across massive databases and point out that yes, Nitesh is has a problem, has lost X lakhs on this app, and is now using his wife's PAN or his brother's PAN and is still spiraling. And so you can intervene there and say, look, we are blacklisting you from these apps. We're just going to kick you off. We're cutting you off. Or a more gentle, indirect way of doing it would be, okay, we might allow you back if you are willing to undergo this rehabilitation or whatever. I know these are not things that work in India, but wouldn't that have been a nicer approach?
No, because the problem is not people needing de-addiction from gambling. The problem is these companies needing de-addiction from wanting to make more money and doing anything in the power to it.
You had a point of visibility into these companies' operations without them having to give you any access.
But what do you do with that? What do you do with that? Either you then say, okay, no. So, like Robin Hood, right? Robin Hood is one clear example which has nicely been reported on in the US. Robin Hood is this, for the readers, it's US's biggest trading app, stock trading, share trading,
Right.
Finos, everything. And they've completely gamified it to hell
Yeah.
and back. No back,
Yeah.
just to hell and worse. Right. And there are so many case studies of, okay, somebody is madly addicted and has lost money and they don't, that is gambling, right? And that's one, another thing I keep hearing is F&O legal hai. Ye ban kar diya, kya fayda? F&O is bigger, right? So many people are using it as gambling. So,
Yeah.
so many case studies of somebody stops doing that and these guys reach out and the guy replies, sorry, yaar, I've lost all my money. I
Mhm.
lost too much. I don't have rent for the next 2 months. I have to borrow from my family. And 1 week later, that same guy reaches back. Here's a coupon code. Here you can have $50 just to get them back into the system, right? Get them gambling again. They know who are the most hooked people. These
Mhm.
companies are not going to change. If you say, so for example, let's say there's an underground bookie who was running betting rackets in the 90s. Now you legalize the industry. That same underground bookie is a ground bookie right now. It's the same guy
Mhm.
who was already very comfortable breaking laws. Now you've made it lawful, right? So he's still, these are not the nicest people in the world. They are preying on people's tendencies to gamble and spend money on things that are whatever. And this is a moralistic. there are morals clearly involved here, right? You can't have a clean, non-moral take on these issues. And there is so much nuance here. Ki alcohol is legal. We just discussed porn, right? Uh, so many social evils are legal. There's this whole cannabis discussion that keeps going on. There is a ton of nuance here, but if it's a social evil, right? If once the government is the only one who has the power to do this, right? I'm not even saying we should agree with this, that it's a social evil or not. If the government has decided, then better to just ban it rather than saying, oh, we will shine a light on it, because these companies get too powerful. There's a lot of money here. There's a crazy amounts of money they have to play around for lobbying. Then that's capitalism at its peak, right? Then these companies will do whatever to hide the fact that they are preying on people who are addicted to gambling. What can the government do? The government can't say, okay, give me the list of people who are most vulnerable. These guys aren't going to expose their algorithms. What can the government do besides just saying one day, okay, you as a company have violated certain norms, I'm shutting you down. So yeah, that's my take.
Okay. Uh, I have no basis for saying this, but I suspect 80% of the users on these apps were casual gamers who probably came on during IPL season or during the World Cup or whatever. And for them, it's just entertainment that's gone away now.
Hmm.
All right. But the remaining 20% of, if you want to be kind, call them hardcore gamers. If you want to be unkind, call them addicts. This is what they are.
Hmm.
Have just been cut off from their supply. And if the empire of pain has taught me anything, it's that when you cut off an addict's source of supply, in that case, Oxycontin, they just move to heroin. And unfortunately, in this example, that would be the F&O markets.
Hmm. So yeah, FNO is a broader discussion and it's bigger numbers, right? And this.
Bigger, like the losses, government data, in both
Hmm.
cases, the losses from the real money gaming, like people lost 20,000 crores last year on these real money gaming apps, and retail traders lost 1 lakh crores on
Right.
F&O in the last year. So it's already 5 times bigger.
So there's a solution needed there also. Like I've heard this argument so much in the last 1 month that look, FNO chal raha hai, wo ban nahi kara. Right, but that is, I do feel that's a bit of whataboutery. In the case of FNO, there is a problem there that needs to be solved. I don't think we should ban stock trading for everyone, for all retail traders. Right.
Mhm.
But there is a problem here that needs to be solved. People are overstretching themselves. This is money that their families need. And there is a role that the government has to play in it.
Okay, so again, I'm not making the moral argument either, since you're
Hmm.
taking such pain to clarify that you're not. Concern is, what are the second order effects of
Hmm.
stopping an admittedly malicious industry in its tracks overnight? What are the second order effects of that? And I see these addicts moving either to uh, more organized forms of gambling, which are still legal, like futures and options, or going underground back to your neighborhood bookie or the Maldives apps of the world, which I'm sure still exist in some
So,
form.
two thoughts there. One is yes, in an ideal world, a government would constantly be thinking about second order effects and how to counter them. In an ideal world, I will say no more. Second is, yeah, FNO absolutely is a problem that needs to be resolved. I don't know. I'm not educated enough on how to best resolve it without using that same hammer. But there is a problem there. Third point, well, I said 2 points, but third point is, yeah, at least it becomes more difficult, right? If they're pushed underground, at least some people will step out.
That's not how addiction works.
But no, see, there's also casual addiction, right? And all these people will not be hyper addicted to gambling. A lot of these would be, okay, ab band ho gaya, band ho gaya. Some people will go behind VPNs and do it abroad. Okay, maybe that's a more regular, who knows?
Uh, Moving to territory that I'm a little more familiar with, uh, FNOs, first of all, futures and options cannot be banned outright because they
Mm.
are a legitimate financial instrument, and institutions actually need them for specific things. They're meant to work as hedges and counteract shocks in other ways. Right, that's the purpose of futures and options. Surprisingly, SEBI has been making all the right moves in how to discourage retail speculation on F&O, which is specifically what the problem is, right? Because
See,
retail investors are not hedging their portfolios; they are purely trying to uh, 10x returns or whatever. Removing weekly expiries is a good step in that direction because not to get too technical, but if you only have monthly expiries and the volatility is not that much, so you're not going to 10x. Even if you get the direction of a bet right, you'll make maybe 5 or 10%.
which
The-
is great.
oh,
Hmm.
yeah, it reduces the daily volatility in movements, which would have a second order effect of uh, the Jane Streets of the world who allegedly are actually causing sharp stock market movements to then affect the F&O markets. Less of that. It's never going to fully go away. And it's permissible under the rules of the game as of today. So, of course,
Yeah.
they're going to do it, right? So, that's great. Reducing weekly expiries. I do wish there was another control mechanism of, okay, here's what we know you make every year because we have your income tax data. Here's what we know you blew on futures and options last year. And so we are cutting you, specifically you, off, which is, I know now, the same solution that I was suggesting for money gaming as
Hmm.
well, which is you all the data, you can pinpoint who the vulnerable people are and intervene specifically instead of wielding a broad hammer against everybody.
Fair. Ideal world. I just don't see that ever happening in the real world.
True. And not just not happening in India, I don't think that can be implemented anywhere in the world.
Anywhere in the world. Yeah, yeah. These companies have every incentive to go after the addicts and get more money from them. For my argument that maybe pushing things underground does make it difficult for the easily vulnerable, the more vulnerable, right, to access many of them. Like since casinos came up in Goa, I would think the amount of gambling has increased in India just because there's so much easy access, right?
Yeah.
Or is it only people that who were earlier underground? No, I know so many people who have not gambled before, but now there's casinos here, they go to Goa, they gamble a lot. So that is
Yeah.
my argument then. That you make it easier and more people come into the fray. You make it more difficult. Some people will make the effort, but some will go away.
That's nice. I did not think of that. But in this, the government is not thinking about existing addicts, but new ones, potential new ones. Smart. I didn't
Point.
think of that.
Good point. Yeah.
Yeah, nice. Anecdote. I had a brief layover in Colombo once. Colombo has a bunch of casinos,
Hmm.
and I met a gentleman there from Chennai who told me that there's a ferry from Chennai to Colombo, and it's filled by regulars on Friday nights who basically live weekends in Colombo, who never check into hotel rooms, who just take the ferry, go straight to they're picked up from the port by the casino, and they're bus straight there, and they spend 48 hours straight there, and then catch the last ferry back home, and they're back at work on Monday morning.
There is value in stopping that. There is value in stopping easy access.
Ways. They said, this is your life. Like, yeah, we work from Monday to Friday, and then weekends we are here. Every weekend. I did not know.
Wow. And there is absolutely a moral take here, right? That these guys are spending their own money. These are rich people, right? These are privileged folks. Great. Where is that money going? That like okay, yeah, I'm heading into full moral territory now. There is room for a better
Right
society.
away, in my defense.
Yeah. Yeah. So
So
yeah.
my take was that the financial data exists for a more personalized intervention, to summarize. And a great counterpoint that we stumbled upon was that that would not work. It would not detect new cases until it was too late,
Yeah.
which is great. Which alone, that argument alone, to me at least, justifies stopping an entire industry in its tracks. And if
Like
you consider,
the parallel for this one, for this exact argument, is New Zealand grandfathering cigarettes.
yeah,
Right. That
uh,
every additional year you have to be this old to buy cigarettes. So the
yeah,
current addicts can, live out their life, but no new addicts. So that's a perfect parallel then.
fucking smart, no? They solved an unsolvable problem of how do you stop this without stopping it.
But again, it's possible in small countries. Again, there will be people who will override that.
Yeah,
Right.
it's just gonna
But that is no reason to not want to improve things. There's always a workaround, right?
yeah. Agree?
See, I went on hopeful toward the end. See,
Yeah,
it's possible.
I was just going to say, your inner optimist is still alive.
Yeah.
And let end on that happy note.
No rants today. Yes. Thank you everyone for tuning in and see you, Nitesh. Have a good weekend.
You win it. Bye bye.
Bye bye.